Starting from a certain immortal cultivation family in the Su kingdom, let's see how Jiang Yun, who carries the 5 spirit roots, can catch up with those proud sons of heaven. Compared to the proud members of his clan, Jiang Yun is cautious and respectful towards his elders. Manage the spiritual field, cultivate spiritual beasts and insects, and study the method of alchemy in formation. I dare not slack off for a moment. Just watching more and more spirit beasts and insects, Jiang Yun thought to himself. You must work harder to earn spirit stones, otherwise you won't be able to afford them anymore. Let's see who will become immortal 500 years later. Human novels are mainly based on mortal anime, with borrowed level settings and very few additional settings. It's not easy for newcomers to create, please provide more support. Keywords of the novel. I am the disciple of Spirit Beast Mountain without a pop-up window, I am the disciple of Spirit Beast Mountain. Download the complete text, and read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Reincarnation in Yu Kingdom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Reincarnation in Yu Kingdom Yu State, Qingyushan Jiangjia commonly known as the Qingyu Jiang family. This family is famous in the state of Yu for being good at guarding spirit beasts and insects. It is said that their ancestors were the Taishang elder of Spirit Beast Mountain. Although the Jiang family has never publicly acknowledged it, they have always been prosperous and have never ceased to be cultivators during the period of alchemy within the clan. Its influence is no weaker than that of cultivators such as Yan family castle. Plus, their family is unusually united and protective. It is rare in the cultivation world, so even the 7 schools will give 3 points of thin noodles. A piece of carved railings and jade, nestled in the architectural complex of pavilions and pavilions. A boy was sitting cross-legged in the cave, practicing for an unknown amount of time, accumulating a thin layer of dust on his body. The boy opened his eyes, slowly stood up, and stretched lazily. As if remembering something, I pinched my left hand and saw a faint flash of light all over my body. The thin gray on my body disappeared, and my whole body became clean and tidy like a new garment. This dust avoidance spell is still so useful. If I knew this spell while on the Blue Star, I wouldn't have to worry about life anymore. This young man's name is Jiang Yun. He used to be from Blue Star, also known as Jiang Yun. He was an orphan and grew up in a welfare institution. He understood the difficulties of life from a very young age. He is very polite to people, but in his heart, he lacks a sense of security due to his teenage experiences. He knows that everything can only be better through his own efforts. Afterwards, through hard work and study, I successfully graduated from university and also found a good job. One day, after finishing household chores, Jiang Yun was resting on a small balcony on the 2nd floor while reading. In the afterglow, he saw a touch of purple. Jiang Yun looked up and saw a purple spot in the sky. It's really beautiful, but I remember meteors are all red. Wait, why are they getting brighter and brighter? Jiang Yun's eyes were purple, and he lost consciousness afterwards. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in a warm place, unable to open his eyes, and seemed to have something attached to his stomach. Perhaps he felt a bit cramped in the area and instinctively kicked it. So with a cry, Jiang Yun was born. The name of this world is also Jiang Yun. The story starts from here. Little Jiang Yun began his growth and found that there were multiple servants and more than 10 houses in his family. He was very satisfied with the living conditions of this life. Everything is fine except for parents who always disappear intermittently for a while and feel a bit puzzled. At first, when he saw people's clothing, he thought it was reincarnation to ancient times, so he began to recall Tang and song poems in his mind, preparing to make a big splash in the future. Until one day, during a conversation between my father and mother, I heard familiar words from deep memories such as Huangfeng Valley, Spirit Beast Mountain, and Blood Forbidden Area. This reminded him of a novel he had read many years ago, which made him realize that the world he was in may no longer be Earth. Unfortunately, I don't remember much of the plot in the book. And that year, Jiang Yun was 1.5 years old. A few years have passed, and at the age of 5, Jiang Yun has already completed his elementary school. Half a year ago, the teacher stated that Jiang Yun's stay at school and studying with other children was no longer helpful to him, and approved his self-study at home. If you have any questions, you can contact him alone. In the eyes of children of the same age, Jiang Yun is a very strange person. He never goes fishing, catching birds, and playing with insects with them. He always reads books alone, which is boring. Not long after leaving the Enlightenment school, Jiang Yun found a good place, which was the family's library. One day, inside the library, Jiang Yun carefully read a book and took notes. Jianjian, it's already high sure. Hurry up and go home. If you don't go back, be careful not to be scolded by Yuan maiden again. Tomorrow is an important day. Just as Jiang Yun was mesmerized by the sight, an old voice sounded from behind. My mother won't scold me. She only complains to you, but thank you for reminding Grandpa Lu. I'll go back now, and you should rest early too. Jiang Yun politely responded when he saw the old man walking by. Then he glanced at the moonlight outside the window, put away his book, and walked out. The old man is the manager of this library, and it is said that he is over 100 years old this year. Jiang Yun is very polite and respectful to the old man on weekdays. Jiang Yun, who was an orphan in his past life, understands that learning more knowledge will be of greater help to the future. Therefore, I come to study every day. Over the past 6 months, the elderly have helped him a lot and are also very grateful to him in their hearts. According to the clan rules, ordinary members of the clan can only read the books on the first floor, while the books on the first floor are all irrelevant to spiritual cultivation, such as personal notes, landforms, and customs. Books related to cultivating immortality are only available on the second and third floors. And Grandpa Lu once revealed that the truly powerful martial arts and cultivation secrets of the family are not here. After listening, Jiang Yun understood in his heart. According to clan rules, children from the Jiang family who have reached the age of 5 can participate in the annual spiritual root test. Those who have spiritual roots in everything automatically have the qualification to enter the second floor. For the intelligent and polite Jiang Yun, the old man was quite fond of him and made an exception by giving him some books from the second floor to watch on the first floor. These books include the distribution of power in the state of you, introductions to the 7 sects of you, rankings and basic introductions of spirit insects and beasts, detailed introductions to alchemy, and the cultivation experiences and autobiographies of some family cultivators during the qi refining period. As for the clan rules, the old man said that Jiang Yun is a good child and has never been to the second floor. But as he gets older, his memory is not good, and he occasionally puts his books on the wrong shelf. In fact, what Jiang Yun most wants to see is still the martial arts, and he has repeatedly expressed his interest to the old man in a subtle way. Unfortunately, the elderly always just pretend to be foolish or pretend to have poor ears and can't hear anything. Jiang Yun had also asked his mother about cultivation techniques, spells, and other issues. Every time, his mother only smiled and said softly, Xiao Yun is still too young now. He can only practice when he is a little older. She also touched Jiang Yun's head. Faced with a mother teasing her child, Jiang Yun was also helpless. After all, in the eyes of others, I am just a 5-year-old child. So the days passed so fulfilling and regular. Jiang Yun, who returned home today, washed and rested early because there was something very important the next day. And tomorrow is the day to test the spiritual roots of children over 5 years old once a year. I am a relatively homey person, and my hobbies are reading novels and cooking. Not very fond of playing games. After reading novels for many years, everyone knows that otaku has a lot of imagination, and I am no exception. Writing novels is something I have always wanted to do myself. I must complete a novel, even if it only has a small audience, or even if it's just for my own entertainment. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Spirit Root Test. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Spirit Root Test. The next day, the sky was just beginning to dawn, and Jiang Yun couldn't wait to get up and tidy up. Perhaps today was a special day, and the servants in the courtyard were also in a hurry than usual. "Aunt May, I remember my mother left the customs the day before yesterday. Why didn't I see her? She didn't accompany me to have a spiritual root test today." Jiang Yun, who was having breakfast, asked the female butler standing by. "Aunt May is this housekeeper." According to her mother, Aunt May was her maid from a young age and later came to the Jiang family as a dowry. "Young master, the mistress said you should go directly to the spirit testing platform, and you will know where it is." The butler replied meticulously. "Mother always does this, she only says half of what she says," Jiang Yun thought to himself. After breakfast, I took the housekeeper out. Along the way, I met many parents with children walking in the same direction. After hundreds of years of development, the Qinjiang family has a population of hundreds of thousands. But most ethnic people can only live in a dozen or so small towns and hundreds of villages on the outskirts of Qingyu Mountain, and only cultivators and their descendants within 3 generations can live in the ethnic area. Even so, there are thousands of Jiang family members living in this ethnic area. Today, children over 5 years old in the tribal area will participate in the test. As for the children in peripheral villages and towns, it is said that some family cultivators will go to the towns for testing. Soon Jiang Yun arrived at a spacious venue. Looking around in a week, there are about 70.80 children. Under the guidance of the waiter, the children stood together. Parents are walking towards the side. Ignoring the chattering children of the same age nearby, Jiang Yun began to observe the surroundings and found a circular stone platform 10 meters ahead, with 3 round beads the size of adult fists floating in the air. This should be the spirit testing pearl mentioned in the book. According to the book, this item is of great value, and its value is comparable to that of a top-notch magical tool. Only the Cultivation family and Cultivation sect will keep this item on hand, Jiang Yun thought to himself. At this moment, a strange sound came from far and near. The children looked towards the place where the sound came from, and a huge dark green strange snake flew in from a distance, then flew over the children, blocking the sunlight and forming a large shadow. The children exclaimed loudly and cried a lot. Jiang Yun also saw a child next to him who had no reaction, but upon closer observation, he found that his eyes were already lifeless and his pants were wet. The giant snake slowly landed on the open space next to the spirit measuring pearl, and when its massive figure landed, Jiang Yun clearly felt a slight tremor on the ground. Upon careful observation, Jiang Yun observed that the thickest part of the giant snake's body had a diameter of nearly 2 meters and a length of over 40 meters. There are a pair of claws in the front part of the body, a silver unicorn on the head, and eyes. Jiang Yun noticed that the strange snake's eyes seemed to be smiling. Just as Jiang Yun's mind was filled with mixed flavors. 2 men and 2 women jumped down from the giant snake and slowly fell to the ground. One of the middle-aged men wearing a dark Taoist robe, with his left hand behind him, walked to the front of the 4 and loudly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the annual spiritual root test again. I, Jiang Shangyuan, am the head of the Jiang family. Most of the people present should know me. Let's start the spiritual root test now." The last sentence is for the following 3 cultivators. Obedience, the 3 people behind Master Jiang quickly responded. Jiang Yun only realized that one of them was his mother, but she was wearing a veil and her attention was focused on the giant snake just now, so she didn't notice it immediately. The 3 of them walked to the side of a spirit measuring pearl, pinching the formula with both hands. After a while, the spirit measuring pearl emitted a faint white light, and then waved it with one hand to fly up to 2 meters high before it stopped moving. At this point, Master Jiang continued to say, "Everyone stands in 3 rows, testing one by one, standing under the spirit measuring beads, without fear or nervousness. The children quickly stood in 3 rows, and Jiang Yun naturally stood in the mother's row. I also saw my mother playfully winking at me. Jiang Yun's face remained calm and he ignored her. A boy stood under the spirit bead, and with a single wave of his mother's hand, the bead emitted a burst of white light that shone on the boy, but the bead showed no response. Mother shook her head and shouted, "Next up." The boy walked towards the side, holding back his crying face. Walking up to my parents, I couldn't help but cry. The whole family is very disappointed. After a while, there was a commotion in the crowd. Jiang Yun saw a little girl with a spirit bead on her head emitting a red and green light. "Fire with double spiritual roots, excellent qualifications," said the cultivator beside him in a loud voice, with a hint of excitement in his voice. Master Jiang is very happy. Quickly said, "Okay, okay. Little girl, please stand next to me." He remembers last year's test, which only found more than 20 children with spiritual roots in the tribal area and peripheral townships. But most of it was measured in the tribal areas, and the output of hundreds of thousands of people in peripheral towns cannot match that of the thousands of people in the tribal areas. This is because if one parent is a cultivator, the probability of their children having spiritual roots is higher. The probability has increased from 1 in 10,000 for ordinary people to 1 in 10. If both parents are cultivators, there is a 30% chance that their children have spiritual roots. But among the more than 20 children last year, only a few with the best qualifications were the 3 spirit roots. I tested a double spiritual root at the beginning of this year, and it seems that I have very good luck this year. The little girl ran happily to the clan chief's side, smiling all over the face. A couple outside the venue wept with joy. It should be the parents of the little girl. After more than half of the queue, another 3 spiritual roots and 5 4 spiritual roots appeared. According to the description in the book, the quality of spiritual roots is determined by the number of spiritual root attributes, with 5 common attributes being gold, wood, water, fire, and soil. The single attribute is the heavenly spirit root, which has the best talent, followed by the double spirit root with 2 attributes, followed by the 3 spirit roots, the 4 spirit roots, and the worst is the 5 spirit roots, which have all 5 elements and can be used with spells, but the cultivation speed is very slow. Its cultivation speed may be less than 1/10 of that of the heavenly spirit root. In addition, there are also some mutated spiritual roots, such as ice spirit root, thunder spirit root, dark spirit root, wind spirit root, etc. The cultivation speed of the mutated spirit root is second only to the heavenly spirit root, and the power of the corresponding attributes' cultivation techniques and spells is astonishing. Jiang Yun was thinking in his mind, and soon it was Jiang Yun's turn. My mother gave Jiang Yun a cheering look, waved her hand, and under a white light, there were 3, 4, and finally 5 colors of spirit beads appeared. The 5 spiritual roots of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth are qualified. Mother sighed inexplicably when she saw the 5 colors, and then said loudly. Jiang Yun's face turned strange when he saw that it was the 5 spirit roots, whether he was sad or happy. Because in the vague memory, mortals set whether the 5 attributes of spiritual roots help to break through the period of spiritual transformation or the period of refining emptiness. I can't remember the specific reason anymore. However, considering these things now is still too far away, as the cultivation speed of the 5 spirit roots was very slow in the early stage. The cultivation realm of cultivators can be divided into 3 stages. Qi cultivation stage, foundation building stage, alchemy formation stage, primary infant stage, and spiritual transformation stage. The higher the cultivation level, the longer the lifespan, and if the 5 spirit root cultivator does not have special opportunities, they can basically only stop practicing qi and eventually reach a postnatal state of longevity. But Jiang Yun understands that qualifications are only a part of cultivating immortality. He will not complain, but will only forge ahead. Seeing his mother's slightly worried gaze, Jiang Yun gave her a hearty smile and stood next to the clan chief with the children who had previously detected their spiritual roots. There was no hint of sadness on his face. Mother felt a little relieved upon seeing this. Turn your head and continue testing. The clan leader nodded slightly when he saw Jiang Yun's performance. I hope everyone can patiently read chapter 15. By then, one can almost understand the characteristics of this book. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Soul Belt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Soul Belt. Due to the small number of children, all the children had been tested in just over half an hour. After observing, Jiang Yun found that a total of 16 children had spiritual roots, with the highest qualification still being the little girl with the previous double spiritual roots. There were also 4 3 spiritual roots, 10 4 spiritual roots, and only Jiang Yun had 1 5 spiritual roots. It seems that the 3 or 4 spiritual roots are the mainstream in the cultivation world, Jiang Yun thought to himself. It seems like this year is a bountiful year. So many cultivation seeds have been detected. You guys, quickly move the things over. The head of the Jiang family had a smile on his face, guiding the attendants next to him to move things. Quickly, the attendants brought 3 boxes, put them down, and opened the lids. I saw a belt placed in the middle box, with an overall color of green and gold border patterns. There are light blue bags in the box on the right, the size of an adult's palm. There are black clothes in the box on the left, and a small river character is displayed on the right shoulder of the clothes. The top left and bottom right corners of the character are embroidered with a mini monster snake and mini monster wolf. Why is it called strange? Because snakes have a single horn and wolves have 3 tails. The box on the left is the standard clothing of our Jiang family cultivator. Although it is not considered a magic weapon, the family's self-produced spiritual silk is added to the refining material, and the defense is also impressive. It is difficult for ordinary swords to break through. The one on the right is a storage bag, which belongs to the category of inferior items. There is a 3-foot square space inside, which can be used for storing items. The homeowner began to introduce the storage bag with a casual tone. After introducing it, he walked over to the middle box and began to introduce it with a slightly solemn tone. This item is called the Yunling belt, which is an exclusive tool of our Jiang family. The refining method is unique to our Jiang family, and it is used to store spirit beasts and insects. Unlike ordinary spirit beast bags outside, besides being more convenient to use than spirit beast bags, the Yunling belt has a certain help for the growth of spirit beasts and insects, which can slightly accelerate their growth and enhance their potential. Speaking of which, the head of the household paused for a moment before continuing. Although there may not be any noticeable changes in the short term, you will be able to experience a significant difference in 10 or 20 years. In addition, this item also has the effect of accelerating the recovery of spiritual beasts and insect injuries. These belts belong to intermediate magical weapons. In the future, you can also use the family's contribution points to invite the family's craftsmen to upgrade them to top-grade magical weapons, or even top-grade magical weapons. The entire cultivation world of the Yu Kingdom knew it was our Jiang family cultivator when they saw this object. At this moment, the head of the family's face slightly lit up. Jiang Yun has read many autobiographies and cultivation experiences of family qi refining cultivators in the library. Most of them introduce the Yunling belt. There is a book about writing magic tools, which includes lower-level magic tools, middle-level magic tools, top-level magic tools, and top-level magic tools. There are even more advanced treasures. Although he didn't know the value of this mid-range artifact, Jiang Yun decided in his heart that if he went out in the future, he would have to disguise it externally. Because once someone guesses their origin and identity, it is not conducive to the martial arts. Once the enemy is confident in killing and obtaining treasures, they will not consider whether you are a cultivator from the immortal cultivation family. Speaking of the origin of the Jiang family, Jiang Yun stayed in the library for half a year and often chatted with Grandpa Lu on weekdays, gaining some understanding of the Jiang family. Jiang Yuan, the ancestor of the Jiang family, was once a great cultivator in the Yuanying period of the Spirit Beast Mountain, known as the Ling ancestor. The founder of the Jiang family is his second son, who completed the Dan cultivation period, while the eldest daughter of Ling ancestor is rooted in the Spirit Beast Mountain to form another lineage. Although the two meridians have developed independently, their relationship is excellent, and they have helped each other through multiple disasters for hundreds of years. Ling ancestor fought against strong enemies for 200 years, using all means to eliminate them. However, the magic weapon Spirit Beast was also destroyed, and he himself was seriously injured. Yuanying was on the brink of collapse, and he was sitting down a few years after returning. But the cultivation period of the two meridians has never been cut off by the cultivators, and the Jiang family is famous for being a united protector in the Yu state. In the world of weak meat, strong prey, and scheming, they are simply a strange flower. For hundreds of years, there have also been many spiritual beasts and insects cultivated within the tribe, some of which are unique to the Jiang family. After several generations or even decades of breeding, the bloodline has been optimized and excellent. Every time the Spirit Beast Mountain opens the mountain gate to recruit disciples, the family can recommend several people to join the sect unconditionally. Alright, the children are queuing up to collect each item one by one. Don't make any noise. You haven't practiced yet and have no spiritual power in your body, so you can't use magic tools for now. But you must keep your things safe. If you lose them, the family won't give you a second one. Just as Jiang Yun was recalling, the homeowner clapped his hands and guided the children to queue up to collect it. Being the head of the household still has some deterrent effect on children. The children obediently queue up, although the line is winding, everyone is very quiet. Soon everyone received their own three-piece set. Jiang Yun touched the waistband of the clothes in his hand and found that it felt very good. There were various patterns of flowers, plants, animals, and insects on the waistband, but he couldn't find any traces of needle and thread embroidery, which was very wonderful. Seeing that the children had all received it, the clan leader continued to admonish the children. You are still young, quite active, and difficult to settle in. The more complex techniques are also difficult to understand, so you can only practice the simplest basic qi cultivation methods. If your own elders have cultivators, you can seek advice on martial arts from them. If there are no cultivators among the elders, they can come to the Chuangong Hall tomorrow and be taught by the family cultivators. Remember not to practice alone without the consent of the elders. The chief's tone suddenly became solemn and continued, there is a rule in the clan that members of the clan who reach the first level of qi cultivation within 1 year can go to the Spirit Beast Hall to receive a top-grade demon beast cub, and those who reach the first level of qi cultivation within 2 years can receive a lower-grade demon beast cub. Do you remember? The children whispered to each other when they heard the leader's words. At this moment, a crisp voice rang out. Patriarch, what if it's not reached after 2 years? It turned out to be the little girl from the previous double spiritual roots, raising her little hand to ask a question. Upon hearing the little girl's question, the clan leader replied, good question. If 2 years have passed and you haven't reached the first level of qi cultivation, the reward transmission hall will be closed and you won't be allowed to go home until you reach it. The children were in an uproar when they heard that they were not allowed to go home. Although they didn't understand the difference between Chuangong Hall and the previous Enlightenment School, not being allowed to go home was a bit scary for them. Perhaps seeing the children's expressions with some fear, the clan leader put aside his serious expression and said in a friendly tone. Don't worry, the food at Chuangong Hall is very good, and there are also many children. You won't be alone. After speaking, give the children a gentle smile. But from the child's still panicked expression, the effect is not ideal. After a few more instructions from the clan leader, they announced the end of this year's spiritual root test. They put away the spirit test beads and rode on the monster snake, leaving in the air. Afterwards, everyone also dispersed. Jiang Yun had been very curious about martial arts for a long time. After being allowed to practice martial arts this time, Jiang Yun held his mother's hand and urged her to hurry home. My mother spoke in a gentle voice and walked slowly towards home with Jiang Yun. In the next chapter, the golden finger will come out. It is definitely not an invincible text. My personal favorite is daily accumulation, increasing my means of dealing with enemies, and accumulating knowledge and skills. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Background. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Background. Since it is best to choose a place with abundant spiritual energy for practicing martial arts, and to avoid being disturbed as much as possible, his mother suggested going to her cave to practice. Therefore, Jiang Yun and his mother went straight to their mother's cave after returning home. My mother's name is Yuan Qing and she comes from another cultivation family. But my mother rarely mentions her previous family background. The Jiang Yun family mansion is not small, with more than 10 houses. In addition to Aunt May, there are also nearly 10 male and female attendants. Only cultivators in the clan territory can apply for attendance from the government hall. The vast majority of families in the ethnic area are descendants of the Jiang family's cultivators of immortality, spanning 2 to 3 generations. According to clan rules, if a cultivator dies and their descendants within 3 generations have no spiritual roots, they need to move out of their clan territory. According to the previous contributions of the cultivator to the family will give preferential treatment to their descendants. Most of the officials and wealthy individuals in the peripheral towns are descendants of these cultivators. Although Jiang Yun has never asked about the specific area of his mansion, it is definitely not easy for him to walk through it with his short legs. Yuan Qing's cave is located to the north of the mansion, passing through numerous buildings and pavilions, and arriving at a small lake. There is a 5-story pagoda in the center of the lake several hundred meters away. This is the cave where my parents cultivate. Jiang Yun has been sensible since childhood and does not let her mother worry. Every time before her mother closes down, she tells Jiang Yun that she is about to close down and not to be disturbed. If there is anything, she can contact Aunt May, and Jiang Yun has done it. Therefore, although he knew the location of his mother's cave, Jiang Yun had never entered her cave. "Mother, how should we get there? We haven't seen any boats nearby," Jiang Yun said as he scanned the lake. "Why have ghosts and elves become stupid today?" "Your mother and I are cultivators," said the mother teasingly. After finishing speaking, I patted the storage bag at my waist and saw a mini boat shimmering in the palm of my hand. I saw my mother waving her hand in the direction of the lake, and the small boat flew towards the surface of the lake. As it flew, it gradually grew larger, and in just one breath, it became a 2-foot long and 5-foot wide boat, floating half a meter high on the surface of the lake. Jiang Yun was momentarily stunned when he saw the flying boat in the middle of the sky, and seemed to have thought of something. His small face bulged and he said to his mother, "Mother, you have such a good thing. Why didn't you take it out before? You know I'm in a hurry to go home and practice." Seeing that Jiang Yun no longer looked like a typical little adult, her mother couldn't help but pinch Jiang Yun's bulging little face and explained with a smile. "Xiao Yun's anxious appearance when she comes home is very interesting. She usually looks like a little adult, and this kind of child's appearance is not common." Her mother couldn't help but want to take a closer look. Jiang Yun rubbed the area where his small face was pinched, restoring his usual serious demeanor. Without saying a word, he turned his head and walked towards the flying boat. Mother followed with a smile. The two of them stood inside, and the flying boat flew towards the cave at an extremely fast speed, but it only took 10 breaths. Approaching the pagoda, I realized that it was very huge. As I approached the gate, my mother offered a small flag and flew towards it. Then, a burst of blue light flowed through the gate, and the flag flew back into my mother's hand. My mother put away the small flag and said, "All right, a formation has been set up here." The flag just now was the formation flag that controls the formation. You can enter now. After speaking, take a step and walk inside. Jiang Yun quickly caught up when he saw the situation. Entering the small building, I found that there were not tables, chairs, and furniture placed inside, but a large spiritual field and bamboo forest, which were planted with many types of herbs. During this period, spiritual insects also shuttle through it. Jiang Yun looked up into the sky and saw a small sun. Mother, aren't we in the same building? What's going on? Jiang Yun was surprised for a while before quickly asking. Mother patiently explained, isn't it different from what we imagined? Actually, for us cultivators, gorgeous furniture decorations are useless and there is no need to deliberately pursue cave cultivation. Only the adequacy of cultivation resources and spiritual energy is the most important. The miniature spiritual vein below here was bestowed upon you by your ancestors after making contributions to the family. Although it is not large in scale, this 5-acre spiritual field was developed with this spiritual vein. After hundreds of years of maintenance, it has now become a top-quality spiritual field. Your great-grandfather was a senior alchemist in the family. Before the end of his lifespan, he devoted all his wealth to refining this top-notch magical tool, the Ling Pagoda. In addition to its strong defense, this tower is also equipped with a spirit-gathering array, which allows the spiritual energy inside the tower to far exceed the outside world. On the top of the tower, a Chinese magic tool called radiance beads is installed, which has the effect of condensing external sunlight and allowing spiritual medicine to be planted inside. After speaking, my mother squatted down in front of Jiang Yun and gently touched his head, saying, Xiao Yuner, these are the heritage left by your parents and ancestors. Unlike the pursuit of killing, looting, and overnight wealth by casual cultivators, the cultivator family focuses on sustainable development. Therefore, most cultivator families within the clan will develop private spiritual fields, insect gardens, and beast gardens. These 5 acres of top-grade spiritual fields may not look big, but they are valuable. Without sufficient spiritual nourishment and maintenance, the lower-grade spiritual fields will never become top-grade spiritual fields. Thanks to this spirit-gathering tower, it has condensed spiritual energy. Otherwise, relying solely on this miniature spiritual vein would always be a low-grade spiritual field. Even so, it took nearly 100 years to become a top-grade spiritual field. Jiang Yun nodded after listening, although he had learned some about it in the book before and also knew that cultivators have various skills to assist in cultivation. In some worlds, the focus of cultivation for cultivators is still to persist in breathing, pursue sudden enlightenment, and make great progress in cultivation. But it is not applicable in this world. You should know that in the future, the invasion of the demon realm into you is just to seize cultivation resources. Seeing his mother's solemn statement, it seems that the cultivator's demands for resources far exceed his imagination. Mother, since Ling Tian is so important, why not develop more? Jiang Yun asked in confusion. Upon hearing Jiang Yun's question, his mother patiently explained, the number of spiritual fields that can be developed by different spiritual veins is limited. Although the mini spiritual vein below is enough to develop nearly 10 acres of inferior spiritual fields, we cultivators also need sufficient spiritual energy to cultivate, and this part of spiritual energy needs to be reserved. Seeing that Jiang Yun had some understanding, she continued, actually, even without a personal spiritual lineage, the spiritual energy of the clan's territory is much higher than in the external world. This is why those descendants of families without spiritual roots are unwilling to leave the clan's territory. Although going to the outside world does not compromise wealth and status, places with abundant spiritual energy will have a longer and healthier lifespan, and the probability of offspring having spiritual roots is also 10% higher. After speaking, he took Jiang Yun to a bamboo tower. The bamboo tower was not big, with only 4 rooms. There were 2 rooms in the middle and 1 on each side. Jiang Yun curiously touched the bamboo and found that the material was not like wood, but like jade. My mother saw the situation but didn't say much. She walked to the room on the right in the middle and pushed open the door to enter. Jiang Yun quickly followed. There is only one set of tables and chairs in the room, a screen, and behind the screen, there are 2 caddies and a bed. There is nothing else. My mother walked towards Huan and sat cross-legged. Jiang Yun also sat cross-legged with him. In the Enlightenment school, Jiang Yun had already become accustomed to sitting like this. Seeing Jiang Yun sitting precariously with a serious expression on his face, his mother's eyes showed a hint of satisfaction. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. First Practice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 First Practice. Jiang and Yun sat cross-legged. Yuan Qing spoke up first and said, "Below the bamboo tower is the spiritual eye of the spiritual pulse. You have not yet practiced, so you cannot sense spiritual energy. There are many advanced and powerful martial arts within the clan, and the highest one can be practiced until the late stage of pill formation. However, practicing martial arts should not be done too hastily and aim too high." After speaking, take out a small bottle from the storage bag in a white book with a cover that reads, "Basic Qi Practice Technique." The mother continued, "This bottle is the Pigu pill. You can take 1 pill without taking it for 2 days. This basic Qi cultivation technique belongs to the non-attribute cultivation method, and any spiritual root attribute can be cultivated. Although the name of this cultivation method is casual and does not come with powerful spells, it excels in safety, low risk, moderate balance, strong compatibility, and the ability to easily modify other cultivation methods in the later stage. And after being improved by several senior cultivators in the family, his cultivation speed is also quite impressive, much better than the Changchun Gong and Tu Ling Ju techniques that are practiced outside. Very suitable for beginners cultivation. You can first open it and take a look. If you have any questions, I will answer them for you." After finishing speaking, she handed Jiang Yun the Pai Gu Dan and the basic Qi cultivation technique. After receiving the food, Jiang Yun first took a Pai Gu Dan and then picked up the technique, only to find it very thin, only about 20 pages long. Each page also comes with illustrations, totaling only a few thousand words. Quietly flipping through the book, in less than an hour, Jiang Yun finished reading it, pondered for a while, flipped through a few pages, then put down the book and closed his eyes. Yuan Qing originally looked at Jiang Yun with great interest, hoping that his son would seek her advice. But seeing Jiang Yun close his eyes, he became a bit anxious and asked, "Xiaoyuner, is there anything I don't understand?" Jiang Yun didn't even open his eyes and said calmly, "There's nothing I can't understand." After that, he remained silent. After a while, it seemed like he felt his mother's expectant gaze. Jiang Yun opened his eyes helplessly and looked at his mother, saying, "This technique is easy to understand, and with illustrations, it's just for children to see. The spiritual energy induction and guidance inside are quite interesting. As for the distribution of the body's meridians, I learned it a long time ago, so all I need to do is remember which meridians run to complete a week." Upon hearing his son's words, Yuan Qing was also helpless. Although his son has been smart since childhood and has been very worry-free, being too worry-free can also affect a mother's sense of participation and presence. Jiang Yun meditated according to the posture in the book, and his breathing began to be steady and slow. In less than a stick of incense, he had already begun to settle down. Seeing that Jiang Yun had successfully settled down and his breath was stable, Yuan Qing also calmed down and meditated next to his son. However, some of his mental energy was focused on Jiang Yun, and he deliberately controlled the absorption speed of spiritual energy to avoid affecting him. I don't know how long he practiced, but Jiang Yun's mind became more stable and his distractions gradually disappeared. Gradually, he felt that there were some special things in the air, which were densely packed. Some were warm, some were cold, some were full of vitality, and some were heavy but still couldn't be seen clearly. Not long after, Jiang Yun suddenly felt that his mind was a bit different. What he couldn't see clearly before suddenly became clear. They were various colored dots of light, very subtle, floating around. Jiang Yun realized that this was the spiritual energy mentioned in the cultivation method and began to use the method of inducing qi in the book. After using the method of inducing qi, the surrounding light dots slowly drifted towards Jiang Yun. Jiang Yun observed that all the flying colors were red, green, yellow, blue, and gold, with only a few remaining colors such as purple, black, and cyan showing no response. Jiang Yun stopped thinking too much and focused on attracting qi. After a while, his eyebrows furrowed slightly. He found that although there were many flying light spots, most of them were not absorbed after entering the body, but scattered out again. Jiang Yun thought to himself, perhaps this is the reason why the cultivation speed of the 5 spirit roots cultivators is slow. The absorption rate of spiritual energy is too low. I don't know what the absorption rate of the double spirit roots or even the heavenly spirit roots is. The spiritual energy gradually gathered, and a faint mist began to appear in the body. It seems that this is spiritual power. According to the cultivation method, the spiritual power of cultivators during the qi cultivation period is foggy. The next step is to operate the spiritual power according to the cultivation route, starting with the small zhou tian of various parts of the body, and finally completing the large zhou tian of the entire body. As long as the large zhou tian can be fully operated once, it is the first layer of the qi cultivation period. After reaching the level of qi cultivation, even without meditation, spiritual power will automatically slowly move along the path of the great zhou tian, and the body will slowly absorb spiritual energy, thereby restoring spiritual power. However, the cultivation speed is far inferior to meditation, and the subsequent second and third levels of qi cultivation only follow this route to strengthen the overall spiritual power. Jiang Yun recalled the content of the martial arts and continued to practice. Seeing that the mist-like spiritual power in the body was increasing, he tried to control the spiritual power to circulate in various parts of Shao Zhou Tian. According to the cultivation method, priority was given to the lower abdomen, chest, then limbs, and finally the head. It was quite difficult for Jiang Yun to circulate spiritual power in his meridians. Currently, the accumulated spiritual energy in his body is far from enough to complete the small zhou tian in his lower abdomen, with less than 1/10 of it circulating, resulting in insufficient spiritual energy. Seeing this, Jiang Yun focuses on attracting qi and accumulating spiritual power. The quiet space was completely oblivious to the passage of time, and Jiang Yun didn't know how long he had been practicing. It wasn't until a hunger signal came from his body that he opened his eyes. I found my mother looking at me with a surprised expression. "Xiaoyuner, have you successfully induced qi?" Yuan Qing's tone was slightly incredulous. Jiang Yun returned to the Tao, "Yes, my mother, but unfortunately, my spiritual power is not accumulated enough to complete Xiaozhou. It seems that I still need to accumulate and polish more." "Yes, really. It seems that my son has excellent intelligence and a childlike heart." "Not bad, not bad. Compared to your mother, I was not inferior back then." Yuan Qing commented, but there was an inexplicable feeling in his tone. "How long did it take me to successfully engage in qi stimulation back then?" 2 months or 3 months. Yuan Qing recalled her childhood when she was known for her intelligence, mischievous behavior, and lack of serious meditation among her peers. It wasn't until a disliked person successfully induced her anger that she began to feel a sense of urgency. She worked hard to meditate for half a month before successfully inducing her anger. Jiang Yun didn't think it was any big deal when he heard his mother's words. He believed that as long as he was serious and focused, most people could successfully induce qi. Unfortunately, he forgot that he was only a 5-year-old child. Jiang Yun was feeling a bit weak from hunger, and when he saw the Pai Gu Dan on the ground, he prepared to take another one to continue his cultivation. As soon as she reached out her hand, her mother took the bottle away. "Xiaoyuner, you are still young and should not practice for too long. You still need to relax and control yourself. You should have noticed that besides your body, your mind and energy have also been consumed. When you grow a few more years, your body and soul will be much stronger than they are now. Even if you stay in seclusion for 1 or 2 months, it won't matter anymore. Upon hearing his mother's words, Jiang Yun naturally wouldn't persist in cultivation, so he prepared to leave the stage and rest. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Spiritual Beasts and Spiritual Insects. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Spiritual Beasts and Spiritual Insects. Jiang Yun and his mother immediately prepared to leave the border. Just as he left the bamboo tower, Jiang Yun saw more than a dozen adult arm-sized strange insects appearing on the open space in front of the tower. One of them is almost twice as big as the others. Next to the strange insects, there are many spiritual bamboo pieces cut into the same length, piled up into a small mountain. Jiang Yun's footsteps immediately stopped, afraid to move any further. To be honest, Jiang Yun has also seen spirit insects in his clan territory. Some children bring spirit insects to the Enlightenment School to share and show off to their friends. But those spirit insects have the largest body size, which is the size of a palm, and they grow relatively soft. The spirit insect in front of me not only has a large body size, but also has a quite fierce appearance. The overall color of the strange insect was dark black, resembling a piece of metal in the sunlight, with a pair of knife-like jaws on its head. There are 2 rows of knife-like insect feet below the body, each row having as many as 10. Sharp-eyed Jiang Yun also saw a small stone cut in half next to the foot of one of the strange insects. At this moment, his mother walked up to him and saw these strange insects and the nearby spiritual bamboo. Then, she took out 4 metal blocks the size of a head from the storage bag and threw them at the strange insects. Upon seeing the metal block, the largest monster insect climbed over first, lifted a piece from its head, and rolled it onto its back. Jiang Yun noticed that the monster insect's feet were very flexible, even though they were under its body. They turned 180 degrees upwards, fixed the metal ball with a few insect feet, and then quickly crawled away. The remaining spirit insects are several pieces that have moved a metal ball. They all crawled towards the direction of the Lingzhu forest and soon disappeared after entering the bamboo forest. Mother, what is this? Seeing the disappearing spirit worm, Jiang Yun asked his mother in confusion. My mother continued to walk forward and came to the front of a pile of bamboo, putting it in a storage bag. We walk and talk, said the mother, continuing to move forward. Jiang Yun quickly caught up. My mother began to explain, just now, those were spirit insects that your father kept in captivity, named golden-foot knife worms. Despite their appearance and the inclusion of a knife in their name, they are not very powerful in combat and cannot be ranked among spirit insects. Your father never wears them when fighting with people outside. The leader is the largest in size, and his cultivation is close to level 2 spirit insects. His spiritual intelligence is not low, and the rest are all level 1 spirit insects with limited spiritual intelligence. The things I gave them before were made from several special spirit minerals and spirit stone powders. It has a significant benefit for their growth. In fact, the cost of this thing is very low. I have stored a lot in my storage bag, and the difficulty of refining is not high. Even an apprentice alchemist can easily refine it. We have agreed with the golden-foot knife worm to bring a certain amount of spiritual bamboo in exchange for these metal balls. Jiang Yun understood after listening, but there were still some questions, so he continued to ask, Lingzhu is right next to us, why don't we cut it down ourselves? After listening, Yuan Qing smiled and explained, the bamboo forest is called Jianqing bamboo, which is a high-quality low-level refining material. There is an inferior magical tool called Qingling Flying Sword, which is mainly made of sword green bamboo. We can also cut down trees, but their spirituality will suffer a significant loss and their value will be greatly reduced, and the upper jaw of this golden-footed knife worm secretes a special liquid when cutting the spiritual bamboo, which can greatly avoid the loss of spirituality. So we can get a big profit with a very small cost. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun suddenly realized that the business intelligence of cultivators was also not low. Quickly, the two of them left the gathering tower and boarded a flying boat to fly to Jiang Yun's small courtyard in the front yard. They gave a few orders to Aunt May, and soon the attendants brought various delicacies to the stone table in the yard. Yuan Qing and Jiang Yun sat face to face. Jiang Yun pays great attention to etiquette in his daily life, and his eating etiquette is impeccable. However, even though he appears to be chewing slowly, the speed of food elimination is not slow. Yuan Qing held her cheeks with one hand and smiled, quietly watching from the side. Soon Jiang Yun finished eating. I picked up a teacup and took a sip of Ling cha. Looking at his smiling mother, Jiang Yun asked expressionlessly, "Mother, my understanding of spirit insects and beasts comes from books, and I don't actually know much about them. Can my mother help me clarify a few questions? Also, could you please elaborate on what the clan leader mentioned earlier about top.grade and low.grade monster beasts? I have read from the book that the cultivation levels of monster beasts range from level 1 to level 10, and I have never seen any mention of top.grade or low.grade beasts." After listening to Jiang Yun's question, Yuan Qing put down his arm and slowly explained to him. In fact, spirit beasts and demon beasts are all the same thing, and those that can be controlled by cultivators are spirit beasts, and vice versa are demon beasts. The cultivation level of demon beasts is indeed divided according to levels 1 to 10. Level 1 monster corresponds to the Qi cultivation period. Level 2 monster corresponds to the early stage of the foundation construction period. Level 3 monster beasts correspond to the middle of the foundation construction period, and level 4 monster beasts correspond to the later stage of foundation construction. Level 5 monster beasts correspond to the early stage of pill formation, level 6 monster beasts correspond to the middle stage of pill formation, and level 7 monster beasts correspond to the late stage of pill formation. Level 8 monster beasts correspond to the early stage of yuanying, level 9 monster beasts correspond to the middle stage of yuanying, and level 10 monster beasts correspond to the late stage of yuanying. You don't need to know higher cultivation levels. As for the superior and inferior spiritual beasts mentioned by the clan leader, this is an internal statement within our Jiang family. Without special opportunities and the use of a large amount of resources for cultivation, this race can generally reach the top level of first-level monsters, which means that monsters in the later stage of Qi cultivation are inferior monsters. Without special opportunities and the use of a large amount of resources for cultivation, this race can generally reach level 2 or above, which means that those who can reach the foundation period are top.grade monster beasts. As for the spiritual beasts that cannot even reach the later stage of Qi cultivation, they have become vegetables. The family has opened a ascension tower, which sells spiritual meals cooked with low-level spiritual herbs and spiritual beast meat. A spiritual meal costs a lot of spiritual stones. Although the taste is good and it has a significant increase in cultivation, the cost-effectiveness is very low. My mother took a sip of tea and then said, "The value difference between lower-grade spirit beasts is not significant, but the value difference between top-grade spirit beasts is vastly different. Some natural practices can reach the early stage of foundation construction, some can reach the later stage of foundation construction, and some even have a lower probability of forming pills. If cultivators invest a large amount of cultivation resources, they will have a promising future." After the introduction of the monster and spirit beast, Jiang Yun saw his mother pause for a moment, as if thinking about what to say later. Regarding spirit insects, they are quite complex. Some spirit insects' cultivation levels are divided into levels 1 to 10, similar to those of demon beasts. However, there are also some demon insects that are not divided into levels 1 to 10 based on their ethnic groups. More specifically, I can't explain it clearly. When your father, who only cares about insects, comes back, you can ask him yourself. Speaking of Jiang Yun's father, Yuan Qing's face began to show anger. Added point 2 settings. It should be reasonable. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Qi Training Stage Level 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Qi Training Stage Level 1. Speaking of Jiang Yun's father, Yuan Qing's face began to show anger. During her pregnancy, a friend of a certain man informed her that some kind of precious spirit worm had appeared in a certain place. Without saying a word, someone left the Taoist couple and hurriedly set off with 6 or 7 fox friends and insect friends in the clan. Then 2 years passed without returning, and there was no news until the family of a certain cultivator reported it. The family then discovered that so many foundation building period cultivators were missing, and the family began to search with all their might. Later, at a great cost, they hired Elder Jidon of the Qingshu sect for divination, only to discover that they were trapped in an ancient formation. In the end, the only 2 Elder Jidon in the family were able to break through the formation with all their might. The most frustrating thing is that someone who was rescued didn't go home immediately, but instead studied with a group of fox friends how to cultivate a newly acquired spirit worm. Every time Yuan Qing thought of this, his face began to look ugly, as if he noticed that his expression was not good in front of his son. He raised his sleeve to cover his face, picked up his hand, pretended to drink tea, but silently recited a mental technique. When his sleeve was down, his expression had returned to a calm state. Jiang Yun ignored the situation and continued to drink tea calmly. Of course he could see his mother's expression, but it was a matter between his parents. He was just a 5-year-old child. Mother and son chatted for a while again, instructing Jiang Yun not to act too hastily in his cultivation. Tomorrow I will go to the cave to practice again, and Yuan Qing will leave. Although it's only Shinsher to see the sun now, Jiang Yun didn't do anything else and just took a shower to rest. Jiang Yun, lying in bed, recalled what had happened today and slowly fell asleep. The next day, at dawn, Jiang Yun woke up. After years of self-discipline, he had already formed his own biological clock. Jiang Yun found that after waking up, his mind had completely recovered, even stronger than before, and his thinking was clearer. Perhaps this is one of the effects of practicing martial arts, Jiang Yun thought to himself. After washing up and finishing breakfast, Jiang Yun walked towards his mother's cave. Walking to the lake, thinking about how to cross the lake and whether to shout, a large black shadow appeared on the surface of the lake. Jiang Yun saw it and quickly retreated. At this moment, there was a loud bang. A water column splashed up. A huge red figure emerged from the water and then landed heavily on the ground by the lake. Yang raised a large amount of dust, making it difficult to see clearly. Jiang Yun was already turning around and running away, but as soon as he ran 10 steps away, a red tongue shot out from the dust and wrapped around Jiang Yun's waist, pulling him back. The dust dissipated, and Jiang Yun looked up to see a red toad-like monster, nearly 7 feet tall with a round body. At first glance, it looked no different from an ordinary toad except for its color and size. But upon closer inspection, there is a tail with a snake head at the end. The snake head is still staring at Jiang Yun. Jiang Yun has heard that the combination of turtle and snake head is called Xuanwu. What should this toad and snake head be called? Jiang Yun's mind was spinning rapidly as he was about to shout for help. The toad spat out a wooden plaque from its mouth. It reads, "Xiaoyuner, it is a spirit beast left by your ancestors. Just call it Honglao. From now on, it will be responsible for helping you cross the river until you can use it to control your own weapons during the qi refining period." Jiang Yun swallowed his saliva, tidied up his clothes, closed his left palm and right fist, and bent down to bow. Respectfully, he said, "I have seen Mr. Hong before, but in the future, I will trouble him when crossing the lake." Honglao didn't speak, but his eyes curved and he turned to enter the lake, his upper body floating on the surface of the lake. Then the snake's head wrapped around Jiang Yun's waist and lifted him onto his back. Then he let go, and after letting go, the snake's head extended its long tongue and licked Jiang Yun's face, then disappeared into the water. Jiang Yun dare not move around, and the mucus on his face dare not be wiped. Stepping on the red elder, he quickly arrived at the gathering tower. As soon as Jiang Yun stepped on the ground, Hong Lao sank into the water and disappeared. Jiang Yun wiped his face and walked forward with a straight face. As soon as we arrived at the door, the gate of the Juling Pagoda automatically opened. After entering, I saw my mother taking care of the spiritual field. Seeing Jiang Yun, he walked over. Seeing Jiang Yun's face expressionless and silent, Yuan Qing felt a bit flustered and explained, "Your mother and I have a cultivation level of 11 levels of qi, and my spiritual awareness is not strong. So your mother cannot perceive you on the other side of the lake, so I invited Old Red to pick you up." Upon hearing his mother's explanation, Jiang Yun's face softened slightly and he immediately asked, "What kind of monster is always red? What cultivation is it?" Yuan Qing replied, "I and your father, including your grandfather, are not very clear about its race. We only know that it is a spirit beast of a certain ancestor, who has lived for hundreds of years. As for cultivation, we have never seen its fighting methods before, but sensing its aura should be a demon beast during the foundation building period, because if it has reached the end of the elixir period, it can speak, and your father and I have never seen it speak." "Mother, how many secrets are there at home?" Jiang Yun asked in a deep voice. "It's really gone. I've already told you the most important heritage of our family. There are also some spiritual herbs and plants, but those are just minor details. You can gradually familiarize yourself with them in the future." After listening, Jiang Yun entered the bamboo tower again to practice. 8 months have passed quickly. Jiang Yun's cultivation of martial arts has reached a critical moment. Among the children who tested their spiritual roots in the same batch, Jiang Ling, the fastest, had already reached the first stage of qi cultivation 5 months ago. And it took her almost a month to successfully induce qi, which means it only took her 2 months to accumulate spiritual power and form the great Zhou Tian. Jiang Ling is the little girl who detected the double spiritual roots. And I successfully infused qi on the first day, and have been practicing diligently for 8 months without slacking off. But so far, I have not reached the first stage of gas refining. Is the difference between the double spirit root and the 5 spirit root really so big? So, what about the cultivation speed of the heavenly spirit root? Can we cultivate it to the qi refining stage in just 1 month? In the past 6 months, Jiang Yun has been a library, a cave, and his own small courtyard. Most children in this age group cannot hide things from their mouths, and Jiang Yun easily asked about the cultivation progress of children with various spiritual root qualifications during the same period. Thinking of these, he couldn't help but feel a bit frustrated, but he quickly adjusted his mindset and continued to cultivate. As a person of 2 generations, he knew that complaining couldn't change anything. A month ago, all parts except for the skull were completed, leaving only the last part, the skull. Not long after practicing the head, Jiang Yun gained the ability to see inside. And today's little zhou of the head is about to be completed. Jiang Yun could clearly see through his inner vision that all body parts except the head had formed a cyclone, with white spiritual power flowing through it. With a sound from Wang, the small zhou tian of the head has finally been completed. The parts of the body were originally flowing independently, but now the flow rate gradually synchronizes, and each part gradually forms a whole with the lower abdomen and head as the center. After completing a complete cycle of spiritual power within his body, Jiang Yun felt that he had become different from the whole world. The first difference felt is the mind, which could only be inside the body and can be slightly extended, about 3 meters. This may be the divine consciousness mentioned in the book. Jiang Yun murmured softly, "My facial features have become clearer, and I can feel the subtle flow of air. Even the tiny dust a few meters away can be caught." Pinching my fist, I realize that my physical fitness has greatly improved, and I feel that there is a fundamental difference between my current body and before. After familiarizing himself with his body, Jiang Yun prepared to start observing his body. The originally excited expression froze. Because he saw a purple light spot in his own soul, which was very familiar in color. In the next chapter, the golden finger will come out. I have designated the qualification as the 5 spirit roots because all the 5 spirit roots and 5 elements spells can be released, as well as the subsequent 5 elements techniques. The speed of cultivation can be solved with both golden fingers and resource pills, but your heavenly spirit root can only release one type of attribute spell for a lifetime. Damn it, besides fast cultivation speed, it's nothing. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ling Huan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Ling Huan. Seeing the purple light in the divine soul, Jiang Yun was initially very surprised, but soon his mood calmed down. After all, I have read many novels in my spare time in my past life, and the setting of crossing with some kind of golden finger in the divine soul is not new. Jiang Yun pondered for a moment before decisively using his divine sense to sense. After all, the things in the divine soul always need to be explored. As soon as the divine sense touched, the purple light began to converge, and the things inside the purple light began to appear. That is a light purple rune. I wrote 2 words, but Jiang Yun doesn't recognize them. Divine consciousness continued to come into contact, and a wave of information appeared in Jiang Yun's mind. Ling Huan, is this its name? Jiang Yun murmured to himself. The ability of Ling Huan is 2. The first ability is called Ling Huan. That's right, the name is so plain and unadorned. The introduction of Ling Huan is that the spiritual energy in heaven and earth will look at you differently. Automatically obtaining spiritual pupils allows for easy insight into the amount and attributes of spiritual power within the opponent's body. Ling Huan itself can also increase the absorption efficiency of spiritual energy by twice, with 50% of spiritual power recovery speed and 30% of spiritual power operation speed. And it can enhance control over spiritual power. Finally, there is also the function of warming and protecting the divine soul. Jiang Yun pondered for a moment. Ling Tong is a beggar's version of identification, and can only observe spiritual energy. Unlike some golden fingers, which have the ability to identify not only names but also detailed introductions. As for the functions behind Ling Huan, according to the previous understanding, it is a permanent buff without consumption. If he could double his previous cultivation speed, he could reach a level of qi cultivation in 4 months. In this way, the cultivation speed is barely comparable to that of the 3 spirit roots cultivators. Thinking of this, Jiang Yun couldn't help but wonder if he could take off in place if he were the heavenly spirit root. The speed of spiritual power recovery is also easy to understand, but Jiang Yun is temporarily unable to appreciate the speed of spiritual power operation and the strengthening of spiritual power control. The second ability is Ling Huan Zien. By cutting a portion of one's own divine soul and consuming a large amount of spiritual power, one can create a Zien. Zien can be bestowed upon other spiritual beasts and insects, but it cannot be bestowed upon humans due to the limitations of the rules of heaven and earth. Zien is bestowed upon the opponent's divine soul, spirit, and soul. So Jiang Yun can perfectly control the spirit beasts and insects that have been given child seals. Divine soul, spirit soul, there is no difference in essence between souls, and the souls of general monsters are called spirit souls. And the endowed person can not only communicate through consciousness, but also obtain the castrated version of the spiritual companion. Jiang Yun's Ling Huan possesses all the abilities of Zien, but its effect is about half that of Jiang Yun's Ling Huan. But it is impossible to form a spiritual beast army because the information indicates that there is a limit to the number of times divine soul segmentation can occur. As long as you practice one layer of qi, you can divide the divine soul for the first time, but the second division requires 7 layers of divine soul strength in the later stage of qi cultivation, which is the qi refining period. The third time requires the strength of the divine soul in the early stage of foundation construction. If the strength of the divine soul is not sufficient and it is forcibly divided, it will lead to the collapse of the divine soul. Spirits and consciousness are synchronized. The strength of divine souls in the early stages of foundation construction indicates the strength of divine consciousness in the early stages of foundation construction. Moreover, the strength of the divine soul, spirit, soul, bestowed upon the object by Xin cannot be higher than that of Jiang Yun's divine soul. After Jiang Yun understood the function of the spirit feeding seal, he exited the divine soul space. Jiang Yun thought to himself, I used to work hard to cultivate, but the gap between me and others is getting bigger and bigger. Now, my biggest weakness in cultivation speed has been made up. My mother once said that the wealth-coupled Dharma land has not reached the level of Qi cultivation before, so I cannot take the pill for improving my cultivation skills. I can gradually take it in the future. Jiang Yun has also learned a lot about cultivating immortality in the past 8 months, and recently summarized that cultivating immortality is about cultivating resources. Cultivate 100 skills, and when you reach a higher level of cultivation, you can prepare to start researching some. I, Jiang Yun, will not be weaker than anyone in the future. A low voice rang out in the room. But the tone is confident and powerful. Due to the slow cultivation speed before, the anxiety in the eyebrows also disappeared. The whole person's spirit and spirit have also made slight progress. Afterwards, Jiang Yun practiced for 2 more days and was very satisfied with the effect of the spirit companion. I thought that doubling the cultivation speed would only barely reach the level of the 4 spirit roots, but there were unexpected gains. The spiritual energy around the body will surge one after another like finding relatives without Jiang Yun's special use of martial arts, and in this situation, the cultivation speed will skyrocket again. The situation of spiritual energy dissipating after entering the body has greatly improved. The speed of running a big Sunday has also increased significantly. The actual cultivation speed has actually increased by more than twice, because the spiritual energy is so coordinated that even if one doesn't have the energy, they keep drilling into their own body. Jiang Yun estimated that although the cultivation speed is still at the level of the 3 spirit roots qualification, it is not much different from the 2 spirit roots. Jiang Yun practiced for many days this time and gained a lot. He ended his seclusion with satisfaction. Then he arrived at the only table in the room, on which he saw the Yunling belt, storage bag, a book, a blue flag, and a blue sword. Picking up the Yunling belt and storage bag placed on the table. It's been 8 months now, finally I can use you, Jiang Yun sighed. Immediately practice the ritual tools according to the method taught by my mother. The ritual practice of magical tools is quite simple. You only need to leave a mana mark inside the tool to use it. After leaving a mana mark, the cultivator can teleport spiritual power to the tool from afar, and with divine sense control, they can control the tool from a distance. However, with Jiang Yun's current level of divine consciousness, he can only release weapons within 3 meters. To achieve top-grade and top-grade magical tools, one can leave a mana mark while also putting in more effort to leave a divine soul mark. In this way, it is equivalent to being ensured that others must spend a lot of time erasing the divine soul mark before leaving the mana mark. The spiritual belt given by the family is only a mid-range magical tool, so it naturally does not have this function. Just leave a mana mark. At this point, Jiang Yun did not know that for the outside world, high-quality magical tools had already been their lifelong pursuit. And the Yunling belt is also a masterpiece among the same level of magical tools. After completing the ritual practice, Jiang Yun's divine soul observed the interior of the magic tool and found 2 circular spaces inside the belt, which means it can hold 2 spirit beasts, each with a radius of 1 zhang. A formation was also set up, with 6 spirit stones installed on the formation. According to my mother, this formation can accelerate the recovery of spiritual beasts from injuries, has a weak ability to gather spirits, and can also put spiritual beasts into a semi-dormant state to promote their development. After listening to it, Jiang Yun was also speechless. The emotional clan leader said that increasing potential means sleeping more in order to have a healthy and strong body. 6 spirit stones can be freely replaced according to the attributes of spirit beasts. Replace with spirit stones with the same attributes as spirit beasts, which is beneficial for their cultivation. For example, red is a spirit beast with dual attributes of water and fire. Once, Grandpa Six mentioned that all the spirit stones were excavated from the spirit stone mine. Lingshire can be divided into low-grade lingshire, medium-grade lingshire, top-grade lingshire, and top-grade lingshire. The exchange ratio between the latter and the former is 1 to 100. However, in the actual transaction process, it often takes about 110 lower-grade spirit stones to replace with medium-grade spirit stones. Because advanced cultivators and formations require the use of high-grade spirit stones, and there are very few intermediate and top-grade spirit stones in the spirit stone mine, with rare items being precious. I have successfully reached the first level of chi cultivation within a year, and I don't know what the clan leader's description of a top-grade spirit beast looks like. I am really looking forward to it. Jiang Yun held the Yunling belt in his hand and murmured to himself. The golden finger is finally coming out. To be honest, I am bigger and more anxious than all the readers, but there are too many things to explain, and there is no way to be anxious. I hope everyone supports my work. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Spells and Tools. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Spells and Tools. Jiang Yun put on the Yunling belt and picked up the storage bag. The ritual training was quickly completed, and the internal space was 3 feet square, as the clan leader had said. Hang the storage bag around your waist and put the blue flag and green flying sword into the storage bag. He picked up another book from the table, which read, Detailed Explanation of Basic Spells. This book was left by my mother and can be practiced after reaching the level of chi cultivation. Opening the book, it was discovered that there were more than 10 spells recorded. This includes 5-element techniques such as Fire Bullet, Stone Cone, Golden Shield, Little Spirit Rain, and Spirit Vine. There are also non-attribute spells such as Dust Avoidance, Light Pointing, Heavenly Eye, Object Control, Windward Strike, and Sword Control. As a person reincarnated from a blue star, I have an indescribable longing for magic. Jiang Yun was the first to learn the Fire Bullet technique decisively. In less than a stick of incense, Jiang Yun learned it. The process is not complicated, as long as the fire attribute spiritual roots inside the body are used to convert the spiritual power into fire attribute spiritual power, and then run according to specific meridians, a fireball can be generated in the hand. This fireball technique is not right. Fireball technique doesn't even require a move, it's quite convenient. Jiang Yun sighed. It seemed that it was too simple, and there was still some room for improvement. Jiang Yun continued to learn several practical spells, including Golden Shield, Object Control, Heavenly Eye, Dust Avoidance, and Wind Control technique, as well as Sword Control. Since he has learned the method, it naturally requires practice. Jiang Yun walked out of the bamboo house, originally intending to cast a spell in the cave. But seeing the busy spirit insects in the distance, I don't want to disturb them. He took out a blue flag from his storage and arrived at the entrance of the cave. With a flash of blue light, a door of the Juling pagoda opened. Jiang Yun left the cave and arrived at the edge of a small lake. Jiang Yun raised his right hand and after about a breath, an orange fireball about the size of a man's fist formed in his palm. Floating 3 centimeters away from the palm of the hand. Jiang Yun studied for a few seconds, frowned, and then waved his right hand towards the small lake. The fireball turned into a line of fire and flew towards the lake, flying over a distance of hundreds of meters and landing on the surface of the lake in less than a breath. With a loud bang, the moment the small fireball landed on the lake, it turned into a massive fire and exploded violently. In an instant, the flames lit up Jiang Yunmi's eyes, followed by a heat wave with a hint of water vapor rushing towards her face. The water waves on the lake's surface have not subsided for a long time, and there is still a layer of water vapor permeating it. This power is abnormal. According to the book, the fireball generated by the cultivator during the initial stage of chi cultivation is the size of a baby's fist, while mine is even larger and darker in color. Jiang Yun pondered for a long time but couldn't figure it out, so he used the fire bullet technique again. Bang still has the same power as before. What's going on? Jiang Yun muttered to himself. Suddenly, something seemed to come to mind, and a faint purple appeared in Jiang Yun's pupils. Use Ling Tong. Jiang Yun's third fire bullet technique, bang, it seemed like something had been discovered. Jiang Yun pondered for a while before using the fourth fire bullet technique, but it took him 2 breaths to complete it. The direction of the throw was slightly higher, so he flew further and only landed on the water surface after nearly 200 meters. The power of bang remained the same, but Jiang Yun didn't see the explosion. He looked at his hand and a clear expression appeared on his face. During the process of casting spells, the spiritual energy in the air constantly flows in. With a large amount of spiritual energy added to the fireball, it will become larger. Even a small amount of spiritual energy flows into the fireball during flight, causing the power of the fireball spell to not be lost due to the distance being too far. My fireball technique is about half more powerful than ordinary fireball techniques. It seems that the phrase, Ling Huan, means that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth will look at me differently. Moreover, the speed of casting spells can also be faster. It is written in the book that it takes half a breath at the fastest, but I clearly feel that it can be a bit faster, which may be due to the increase in the speed of spiritual power operation. Jiang Yun has gained a deeper understanding of the role of spiritual dependence through this incident. Although I still want to continue testing my spells, my spiritual power is almost depleted. Not enough to use the 5th fireball spell. Holding a small flag, he returned to the bamboo tower in the cave and meditated for an hour. After recovering 50% of his spiritual power, he took out a blue flying sword tool the size of a palm. This is the Qingling flying sword made from my family's sword and bamboo. Although it is only a low-grade magical tool, it is very useful. Not only is it a good attack tool, but it can also be used as a flying tool. My mother said it sells very well in the outside market half a month ago. The barrier between the 11th and 12th levels of my mother's Qi training period loosened, and the opportunity was not lost. My mother immediately began to shut down. Before closing down, I handed Jiang Yun the small formation flag, a green spirit flying sword, and a detailed explanation of basic spells. I don't know if my mother is going well, Jiang Yun murmured before stopping thinking too much. Start practicing with a flying sword, as it's just a beginner tool that will be quickly completed. Subsequently, Jiang Yun offered a flying sword and used his divine sense to control it to fly inside the room, only to see streams of blue light streaking through the room. After playing for a while, control it to fly to the ground in front of you. Then, with both hands pinching and increasing the output of spiritual power, the green spirit flying sword changed from a palm length to a 7-foot length. Jiang Yun stepped on it with both feet. Half an hour later. Ha ha ha. Oh roar. The red old man sunbathing by the lake heard a burst of cheerful laughter, but remained motionless. Continue to half squint your eyes and bask in the sun. Because it has been listening for almost half an hour. I saw a blue sword light flying rapidly down from high altitude, circling around the gathering tower, and then flying towards the lake. The sword light swiftly brushed against the lake surface, drawing 2 water lines on the surface of the water. In the blink of an eye, the kung fu sword light flew in front of the red old man. Upon closer inspection, it was Jiang Yun, and the blue sword light was the green spirit flying sword. It is said that everyone yearns for the sky, but I am truly not deceived. Rao is a serious and playful person like Jiang Yun. I couldn't help but fly for a while longer. After wielding the flying sword, Jiang Yun walked up to Hong Lao and respectfully bowed. Red old man has been working hard all these days, and I will remember it in my heart. I will definitely thank you in the future. Red Old Half squinted his eyes slightly and let out a quack. Jiang Yun stepped on the flying sword again upon seeing this, with his left hand behind his back and his right hand raised with 2 fingers, emitting a faint white light, and performing the imperial sword technique. The flying sword gradually accelerated and flew towards the front yard. However, within a few seconds, Jiang Yun flew back to his small courtyard. A few feet away from the ground, Jiang Yun jumped off the flying sword, which quickly shrank and flew into the storage bag. "Prepare meals," Jiang Yun said to the attendant who was sweeping the floor next to him. The attendant bowed back and then left. All the attendants in the clan territory were banned and unable to speak. After working for 20 years, one can leave the tribe and return to secular life, and the ban can be lifted at that time. However, the attitude towards mortals is actually no different from that towards ants. Except for Aunt May, there are all such attendants in my family. In addition, there is another type of attendant, all of whom are highly skilled and experienced martial artists from the secular world, including several master-level masters who can unleash their energy. This type of attendant is subject to the prohibition of life and death. The main purpose of these attendants is for young cultivators in the family to impart experience and protect themselves during secular training. No matter what kind of attendant it is, applicants are constantly coming. On the one hand, there is a reward of a spirit stone every 10 years. The latter type of attendant doubles. On the other hand, it is also for the elusive fate of immortality. Especially the latter type of attendants are mostly for this purpose. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Beast Valley. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Beast Valley. After reaching the first stage of chi refining, the body slowly absorbs spiritual energy, so ordinary food is no longer a necessity, but Jiang Yun still eats a lot. Returning to his own room, he walked to a hanger and looked at the clothes hanging on it, ready to make a decision. However, Jiang Yun hesitated for a moment and still did not apply dust removal to himself. Finally, he ordered to the outside world, "Someone, I want to take a shower." Hot water was quickly ready, and Jiang Yun, lying in a luxurious bathtub, breathed a sigh of relaxation. "I don't take a shower, don't eat, don't sleep, rely solely on dust removal techniques, pigudan, and meditation. Perhaps this will be my daily routine in the future. Today, let's be my last indulgence." Half an hour later, a blue sword light flew over the square in front of the family government hall, and the visitor casually collected the flying sword and walked towards the government hall. I saw a young man about 6 years old, who was very handsome, very durable, with bright and lively eyes, and a serious expression on his face. Wearing family-style clothing. There is no crease on the waistband of the clothes. Standing tall and upright, there is a sense of extraordinary demeanor. Just because I'm too young, I feel inexplicably cute. Suddenly attracted the attention of many members of the tribe. Especially many young girls are quite restless. Jiang Yun calmly accelerated his pace. Entering the government hall, there was no imagined ethereal and majestic aura, but rather a noisy atmosphere. There are countless jade and bamboo slips hanging on the left wall of the hall, and a 3-zhang long table is placed in front of it, which is divided into 2 parts. Left and right. There is a sign next to the left half of the table that reads, "Task Pickup." The sign next to the half table on the right reads, "Task Delivery." There are a total of 4 monks behind the long table. Jiang Yun observed that there were not many people receiving and delivering tasks, only a few people. More people were still watching tasks on jade and bamboo slips, and there were also people communicating with each other. Jiang Yun withdrew his gaze and looked to the right. There are 3 separate rooms, each with a window. There is a plaque on it that reads, "Resource Exchange Office," and there is also a small line below, "No spirit stones are accepted, please go to the task delivery office to exchange for family contribution points." Upon reflection, Jiang Yun understood their respective functions, as he had seen similar settings in his past life. Jiang Yun continued to walk forward until he reached the end, where he saw the clan Changjiang Shanyuan whom he had seen during the measurement of spiritual roots. The clan chief sat by a long desk, holding a spirit pen and recording something in a book. Jiang Yun did not disturb, but patiently waited on the side. When the clan leader put down his pen and picked up a cup to drink tea, Jiang Yun walked forward and saluted. Jiang Yun has met the clan leader and recently reached the first level of qi cultivation, so he came to inquire about the collection of spirit beasts. If there is any disturbance, please forgive the clan leader. After all, Jiang Shanyuan is a foundation-building cultivator, and his divine sense is not much stronger than Jiang Yun. When Jiang Yun first entered the main hall, he had already discovered this handsome younger generation. At that time, when I saw that his cultivation was at the first level of qi cultivation, I knew what had happened. But he didn't expect that although he was young, his language was appropriate and his attitude was humble, which really surprised him a bit. He admired Jiang Yun even more in his heart. I remember you, you are Jiang Jingqian's child. Not bad, not bad. Being able to cultivate to the first level of qi cultivation so quickly, I believe you will practice diligently and never give up. And it seems that your spiritual aura is very stable, indicating a solid foundation. In the future, we must continue to practice diligently and not slack off. Jiang Shanyuan nodded in approval and spoke kindly. Then he turned his head to the side and shouted. Jiang Yan, come over to me quickly. Then a young man who appeared to be 18 or 19 years old walked over, with a hint of impatience on his face. What's going on? The young man's tone was not polite at all. Jiang clan chief didn't mind either, pointing to Jiang Yun and saying, this is a junior who has reached the first level of qi cultivation within a year. Take him to the Beast Valley to select high-quality spirit beast cubs. Remember, go to the inner area. The young man was somewhat surprised upon hearing this and gave Jiang Yun a deep glance. Upon seeing this, Jiang Yun raised his hand and saluted, and the young man returned the salute. The young man then said, come with me, and walked outside the hall. Jiang Yun bowed to the clan leader and quickly followed suit. Outside the hall, the young man patted the Yunling belt and a one-horned spiritual snake appeared on the square. This spirit beast is somewhat similar to the one the clan leader was riding on that day, but its size is much smaller than the clan leader's, and its color is mainly green. However, there are 2 ink stripes on its back that extend from the head to the tail. 2 claws are missing. This is the representative spirit beast of the family, the silver-horned thunder snake, Jiang Yun said to himself. Jiang Yun consulted his mother and 6th grandfather on the knowledge related to spirit beasts and also read many books about spirit beasts and insects in order to select them. Come on up, it's a bit far away. It's more energy efficient for us to set off on a spirit beast. The young man said and jumped onto the neck of the spirit snake. Jiang Yun also jumped up afterwards. If standing on the back of the red elder is like riding a boat, then standing on the body of the spirit snake is like an imperial sword. The young man patted the snake's head, and the snake took off. Although its speed was not as fast as Jiang Yun's sword, it was not slow either. Fly all the way out of the tribe's territory. As he was about to fly out of his tribe, the young man offered a talisman. Afterwards, Jiang Yun felt like he had passed through a layer of things. Jiang Yun just wanted to turn back and use his spiritual pupils to see what happened. But the rear has already been blocked by a mountain, so we can only give up. After about an hour, the spirit snake flew into a valley shrouded in clouds and mist. It is difficult to see things with the naked eye after flying in. Jiang Yun discovered that his divine sense had also been suppressed to the point where he could only let out 1 meter. After more than 10 breaths, the fog faded and a bright light appeared in front of me. In front of me was a vast plain, with huge lakes, mountains, and forests in the distance. Seeing Jiang Yun's surprised expression, the young man explained on the side, this is a secret realm. It is the place where our Jiang family cultivates spiritual beasts and insects, called Beast Valley. It is the foundation of our family. Previously, there was a group of cultivators in our family who liked to cultivate spirit insects and wanted to change their name to Insect Valley. However, they sent people from both sides to fight, and you know what happened. The name is still Beast Valley. It must be the group of people who cultivate spirit insects that lost, Jiang Yun thought to himself. The spirit snake flew towards a mountain peak, during which it saw various spiritual beasts on the ground and in the air, overwhelming its eyes. After a while, the young man flew to a cave and descended from the spirit snake, shouting loudly to the cave, "Junior Jiang Yun, pay respects to senior uncle." Today, a junior has reached the first level of chi cultivation within a year, so he came to select a spirit beast. Humph, what kind of spirit beast should we choose? Besides eating and being eaten, spirit beasts also have fighting skills. What else can they do? How can there be any practical spirit insects? In the future, when testing the spirit roots of our clan's children, we should say that when we reach the chi cultivation stage, we can choose spirit insects. Before anyone could hear him, he arrived first. After a while, a rough-looking, 60-year-old cultivator walked out. Jiang Yun smiled bitterly at the words and defended himself, "Master, according to clan rules, if a child doesn't want a spirit beast, they can also choose a spirit insect." Humph, 89 out of 10 people who came to pick chose spirit beasts. "Alright, you go, I'll hand over this child." The old man waved his sleeve and robe, driving away the person directly. "Report to senior uncle, father has instructed us to take this younger generation to the inner enclosed area." Jiang Yun quickly added when he saw that he was about to drive people away. "That miser is quite generous this time. I know now, come with me, little one." The old man muttered to himself and beckoned Jiang Yun to follow. Jiang Yun bowed to Jiang Yun and quickly followed suit. I have really pondered over the following 2 chapters for a long time and believe that I have reached my own level of 150%. I hope this work will become increasingly excellent. People you like, please support them more. End of this chapter.